Hi everybody, welcome back to Mirror and Muse. I'm Beka and today we have our guest back, Ronnie, who's been on maternal leave and been in her newborn bubble. But she's back today, so I'm excited for what we are going to chat about, and thanks for joining us.
How exciting. How exciting to be back. What a time.
Yeah. How's postpartum been?
Good. I think I was prepared to be in my little cocoon with my fourth baby. It has gone so fast. And it's so sad. I just cleaned out all of her newborn and 0 to 3 month clothes and I was like, oh, just packing it all away, and it's our last one. So I'm like, goodbye, newborn bubble. And kind of right on time because the world is apparently falling apart. So it's fun.
Yeah. Lots has been happening in the news and media realm of everything happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a quick pre-chat and I was just saying to Ronnie about the key to getting through for me in the last little bit has been just about really staying present. So if I'm washing the dishes, I'm washing the shit out of the dishes. If I'm vacuuming the floor, I'm just vacuuming the floor, and I'm like loving my life and being present. And I'm reminded when I watch my kids, they're so present and here and now, and my son will be like, Mom, and I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'm trying to unpack the dishwasher. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I can pause. Okay. Hi, what's up? And I had a friend say to me the other day, actually, she was like, I just don't understand. My 10-year-old will like fight and fight and fight with me. And then after half an hour, they're like, Mum, can you sit with me and read a chapter of our chapter book? She's like, I don't want to sit with you. We're fighting. And I said, well, in their mind, the fight's done.
Yeah, it's over.
Because they're present. Like they're so in the present, they've forgotten about that. And as adults, we kind of tend to be really in our heads and not in the present. So that's kind of what's been getting me through. And I think the doom scrolling is like, for me, reminding myself that when I'm doom scrolling, half the time it's like trying to escape the now and the reality. And so just be more present with my energy and with my children, and not worry, so much about the future of like, how am I going to make this work and how is this going to work, and how, because when we're thinking about the future, our energy is going into the future and it's not actually bringing in what you need in the now. And when you're worried about the past, you're like leaking your energy into the past and therefore not actually able to show up in the present.
Yeah, I think this is where I've been for this sort of like postpartum stage of, I'm in the thick of it because I do have 2 babies that are waking up through the night, and there are some nights I just don't sleep, and it is my own personal just like pet peeve. I hate not sleeping, or I hate falling asleep and then the other baby waking me up 20 minutes later, and I'm like, but staying really present has allowed me to enjoy this time more because I know it is the last time. And the kids do grow up really fast. And now I'm in my 30s, I'm a lot more aware of how fast the times are changing. Yeah, like I had my first babies in 2016 and 2018. Like they're older, they're in primary school, they're doing their own thing. And now I've got these little babies again. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually the last time until I have grandkids. Like, what? Where has the last decade gone? I'm not sure. But I do notice being present is almost a maturity thing as well. Because even my son's like, I can't wait till I drive and, move out and I can do this and like go get a job. And you know how you used to always be like, I want to get older and do this and I want to have my first bear, and like, you're constantly like wanting to grow up. And I think you get to this maturity level, and maybe this is where kind of like even just the collective in general is at, where they're like, hold on, am I actually being present? Like, I caught myself the other day. I manifested literally like my dream house, and the way it came about was so bizarre. And I had to remind myself, I waited my whole life, like being not like poverty, but I was definitely in like the more broke mindset there for a while. And when your life starts to manifest, you're like, wow, I want to be here for it. I want to be present. I want to enjoy it. I want to acknowledge it instead of just constantly trying to be more, do this or the next thing. And I think the collective is finally learning that maybe where we're at right now, even though it's all absolutely like kicking off, is actually really cool to be present here. We've been waiting for this like awakening, and we've been waiting for this purge, and we've been waiting for this like new earth energy. And it's like, it's here now, which is so cool and so interesting to navigate now that we're here, we're in it.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think too, the ability to be present, I always tell my clients that's kind of where your soul's battery is. And so if you're not able to connect into the present, like you're always running in deficit. And I kind of explain it like when we look at like the law of physics and stuff, if you're not operating from that place of the very much now and like what you're doing, that makes it harder for the law of physics to actually work and like bringing you opportunities and things. And the example I'll use is I have been worrying about like what to do basically for my career in terms of nursing. Like, should I go back into the fire and keep my certificate current? Do I let it lapse? What do I want to do? Like all of that. And I kind of like looked around online, and I was just like, it stressed me out more, and I couldn't see a way forward. And then I was just like, okay, you're actually like starting to get into the worrying about the future state. You're not actually in the present state. And so for 2 days, I just put my thoughts kind of back into the present and was like, what do I want my life to look like now? How do I want this day to be now? And I turned up to school to pick up the kids, and the principal came over to me and said, hey, there's a nursing job that's needed for only a certain amount of hours a week. It's part-time. Would you be interested? If so, go over and get the paperwork and you can start next month. And I was like, see, like when you're in the present, the things just happen because they just happen instead of trying to make it happen. You know, I could have applied for 45 jobs and none of them really suited me, or I could just, anyway. So long story short, I reactivated my nursing certificate. I started my own business, like actually got it registered and as a sole trader, blah, 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 blah. And the amount of work that I got done in like one day, because I had like stopped, waited, been in the present, and then what needed to happen could actually unfold. And I feel like if I had been focusing on what I want to achieve over there, potentially, like, and creating that over there, I don't know if that would have unfolded in the same way of ease.
Yeah. And I think this is part of this sort of like feminine flow. And I want to say it's actually more of like a almost union within self of being like, yeah, I know the structure, I know the masculine action taking that you will need to take, like you took it, but the feminine surrender to it. Of one of the like scientific things that I've particularly been interested in has been Carl Jung's interpretation. I think I called it like Carl Jung on my TikTok, and I was like, oh, that was not right. whatever.
It's so interesting
Um,
you've been listening to him, because I was listening to him 3 or 4 months ago.
yeah, and I was like, he's always been in like, the psychology realm anyway, so that's cool. And it actually really landed for me because I was like, this isn't just scientific. So his like theory is basically like you have two contrasting thoughts, opinions, beliefs, whatever. And as humans, we want to resolve the conflict, right? We want a resolution. So we'll quite often, as a human being, collapse into one or the other. Like there's an opposite that we will naturally just gravitate to, and that's what we're going to stick to, right? You see it in spirituality, you see it in everyday world, you see it in politics, you see it in literally everything, right? There's a polarity to pretty much everything in this world, in this dimension, in this planet. But his theory was if you didn't collapse into one or the other, eventually, as you just described, a third option will come through. And like that's where I use the third energy. Other people use it as different things, but because you didn't collapse into I've got to go work full time or I just can't work at all, a third option through not spiritually bypassing became available to you, which is quantum physics. It is also psychology. It like there is science behind it. And I think for me myself, I'm a very scientific kind of gal. I love science. I love all of like the proof in a way, even though my belief is also research itself is actually non-existent because the people that do the research automatically have placebo. So they're already automatically going to hope for an outcome or manifest. Like I think even though we research and it's scientific, I do think quantum and universal laws automatically trump any research we do anyway. But it's fun. It's cool. It's exciting to be a human and have these real life experiences where we can say, hey, we're noticing something in the collective, but this is also our interpretation because of our experiences. And so, yeah, I think at the moment, collectively, what you just described is we're sort of coming into this weird third option where it's like this no longer suits, this no longer suits. Let's wait long enough to have a third. And it's constant. And I think this is where our world is changing, and that whole presence of not necessarily having to bypass and get a resolution straight away, the human need, desire, the ego wanting just a resolution, the fastest resolution preferably. It's like, hang on, let's hold in this void, which is very feminine of us, to sit in the like limerence of uncertainty to get the next option. And I think, collectively we're there. So that makes so much sense to me. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. And when you talk about the what was the word? It's gone now. But with the pause, or with that like third option coming in, is that what some people would call like a different timeline, or is that like something different?
It can be, yeah. So one of the things, because I guess we're so spiritual that we're like, time's not real, right? Like we're like, time's just a construct we as humans have created, which makes so much sense. And I think one of the explanations that I used to have explained to me by a coach many years ago was like, it's like these train tracks, right? So they're all kind of like going in the same direction, but you have like these different like trains with different stops, and you can actually swap and jump onto the different trains on the different tracks along the way. So you're kind of still in the general direction, like you're still going in it, but how you get there changes. And I think that's where the third energy comes in, because eventually, and this is the same thing that I guess Dolores Cannon had spoken about, there being different earths, how it's like eventually there's going to be one new earth over here and one kind of old earth, right? And I was always like, oh, that's such a polarity. Like something about that just kind of felt unsettling and like a hierarchy kind of way of being like, oh, well, this earth must be better than this earth. And I was always like, that seems definitive to me. Whereas now I kind of understand it as, yeah, you're almost jumping these little timelines when you don't collapse into a solid belief that's not changeable, because that kind of puts you on a path of just destruction no matter which way you go then. Because as humans, we're here to grow, we're here to learn. If we take away that opportunity, which is that third energy of, hang on, let me not collapse, then either way, I think it's going to lead to destruction of humanity, whichever way you do it. So it's sort of like the only way forward, because obviously it hasn't worked in the past. Like if you look at history, being so definite about everything, no matter what way, is going to destroy humanity. So we're doing something we've never done before or never had the consciousness to do.
Yeah, I think that's the consciousness. Yeah, I think too, it's when you're able to understand where we're at in the human experience, like having that understanding that you are here to experience and you are here to be human. And I see a lot in the spiritual community of people not wanting to enjoy the human experience and feeling homesick or feeling lost or feeling like they don't fit. And so when you talk about inner union, I wonder if we could just speak into that a little bit about like, how do you enjoy the human experience and have inner union or reach that inner union within so that you can enjoy life, and that when there is struggle, you can move through the struggle with ease rather than letting it kind of hold you stagnant. We want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So this actually brings me to, the reel that you sent me this morning.
Oh, yes.
About the guy who was doing like astral projection in the sauna, right? I have no judgment for this stuff. Like I read the comments and they're like, well, don't do it then. And
just to explain to explain the reel, I sent Ronnie a reel this morning, and it was two guys doing breath work in a sauna, but one is standing up, and you're so focused on watching the one in the background who's doing like the insane, is it called hydrotropic breathing? I can't remember the term.
So he was doing the holotropic breath, which is basically like hyperventilating in the core of it.
In the sauna, which is like, to me, that's fucking extreme, but men like to push themselves to the ultimate.
Each to their own,
and you're watching this one doing the hyperventilation, and then the next thing, the other guy just like totally blacks out, faints, hits his head on the sauna seat, and then the guy who's obviously trying to do a trip like jumps down and helps him up and takes him out of the sauna. So that's the video.
And kind of like slaps him awake. He's like, "You good, bro?" Like, and
you ruined my trip, bro.
He's like, damn it, I'm back in my humanness. So I found that like it was a good reel, to be honest. Like I just was like, that was funny. Like I'm pleased that they shared it because they didn't have to, and I think it's a really good education tool for us, even just as humans, right? Like I was like, that was very, depending how deep you want to go into the layers, but my thing, it was quite interesting that they were men, and they were doing their kind of like, I guess like spiritual practices and stuff. And like men really do benefit from things like sauna and cold plunge and very active, things. You'll find a lot of men will open up more, if they're at a, doing some type of building or, sports or something, and, they're with their homies. But if you try and get them to sit down in like a couples counselling, the men, that they're not going to get much out of that. the woman might, like the wife might, but yeah, you can see how it was relevant to do something physical in like a hot sauna, and like it was fine. I think it was a great tool for education. Maybe of what not to do sometimes is fine. Like the first thing that I pointed out was when you do breath work or anything that is classed as potentially dangerous, or it's going to change your altered state, you lie down. So safety tool is, and that way if you pass out, you're already on the floor. Like you just want to try and like mitigate the damage. So I was like, great teaching tool. It doesn't mean don't do it. We're not breakable. And people are so in fear, like, oh, that's dangerous, they could die. It's like, yeah, they could, but we're actually quite resilient as humans. And I think a lot of us have been so scared, and we don't realize, we have soul contracts. We know eventually we're going to pass and leave this earth. We sort of know generally when. Like, go and be human. Try the things. Like, how cool is that to hyperventilate in a sauna? Like, give it a crack. And do it as safely as possible, obviously. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting reel, because it was, for me, I wasn't really that triggered. I was like, yeah, they could do it safely. Yeah, they're sharing education. I believe, as far as you said before with the scrolling and stuff, like I'm really intentional with what I consume through social media. I'm very intentional with, is it going to help me or harm me? Or is it just, am I honestly just going to scroll for 20 minutes and just chill out and get a dopamine hit? Like, whatever. I'm very intentional at that time, and there's nothing wrong with any of it. Like if you want to scroll and just feel good, do it. Just put an intention of timeline and stuff. And it's the same thing of this inner union now, that like I believe there is so much polarity, and the feminine in me is like, you want to be nurturing to yourself, and you want to have healthy boundaries, and you want to be able to flow and surrender and know that you're safe. But there's still the masculine inside of me that's like, I still want to be primal, and I want to go throw myself in the lake, and I want to go and do physical stuff, and I want structure and discipline and karma, to be honest. Like I'm at this point now where the contrast that I see, even if it's something I don't like, I'm so grateful for it, because I know it's something that I don't want, or I don't want to manifest. So the contrast is, oh, that's shit. Something bad has happened, or there's been a car crash or something, and then you're reminded instantly, oh, I don't want to be in a car crash. How cool is that that's been brought to my awareness? Like, cool. And I think the more we come into this acceptance of self, which you can see there's a little bit of contrast in the collective about where they're falling into that kind of like feminine or masculine or toxic stuff going on, and they don't actually acknowledge that that's part of it. How cool is that to notice it and be like, probably don't want to be like that. Probably don't want to try hyperventilate in the sauna. Like, cool. How cool is that? That we can see it and not have to experience it if you don't want to. But then there's other people where I'm like, shit, maybe I'll give that a crack. Like, but I'll just do it on the floor. Like, I'll make sure I've done my due diligence here to make sure that I'm safe when I do it.
I think a lot of people reacting, and the reaction in fear comes down to they have not created that safe haven within themselves. And maybe that's not necessarily their own fault. Perhaps they've had a traumatic childhood and they've been in fight or flight for their whole life. They don't know what it's like to be able to be in a serene state or in a pain-free life. And I know that, like, depending on your childhood really impacts how you go on to live as an adult. And one thing I noticed with myself, so because of my own upbringing of being raised in this very constructed, isolated, spiritual, narcissistic cult, it kind of like really formed me to have this like quite strong dogma about certain things and quite a lot of judgment. And I used to despise that. And I used to think like, I hate that I was brought up like that. I wish I'd had a different upbringing. What I've come to realize in my adult years is that those things really shaped me into now, when I've grown up and I've had a spiritual awakening, I will not go into a spiritual anything if it feels like a cult. But I like miles. I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
see it, know it, feel it, nope. And also, it still leaves me at a vulnerable place where I'll use COVID as the example. So with COVID and everything that was happening, what it did was made me in this vulnerable state that I went back to what I knew of. Like, everyone's against us, the government's against us, I'm gonna die, my kids are gonna die, we're all fucked, like we have to take this medicine we don't want. And I really and what had happened is that I ended up like sitting in this for years of like, the world's fucked and I'm miserable and this is a miserable place to live and I actually just want to exit, but I can't because I've got kids. Instead of really realizing that those things, yes, they may be happening out there, but it doesn't have to impact the in here. And this is what I see a lot in like conversations with like mums at school or like randoms, is like people get really upset about like current events, and I understand that, but when you can get yourself to the place where you can look at them with an element of neutrality. Like an example for me is this recent shooting assassination of this American guy. I don't even think I can remember his name. Is it Cameron Kirk?
Charlie.
Huh?
Charlie.
Charlie Kirk, was it?
Kirk, yeah.
See, like I just like over my head. But there would have been a time where I would have got really angry about either the things he'd said and done and been like, well, you kind of deserved it. Or I would have been on the other side like, what kind of people are like allowing that kind of free speech? Like, we should be cracking down on that. You know what I mean? So like I would have taken one side or the other.
The collapse, into one or the other,
Yeah, and I would have spoken out loud about it very publicly on my social media and like had a really strong opinion one way or the other. Now where I'm at in my life is like, it doesn't really bother me either way. It doesn't affect me personally. And I don't actually really need to buy into it because I'm just here doing me. And like, I can acknowledge that in the world, there are three energies. There's the energy of, and in the natural world, right? There's the energy of growth and expansion, and there's the energy of death and destruction. And they both exist in our universe. And I think like politics is just a way to make it really polar of like the two. But in the entire universe, there is a universal law of like death and destruction and growth and rebirth. And then there's the neutral force. And so like, which one do you really want to be doing? But when we can use that cycle and understand that cycle, which some teachers will call it the law of three. But when you can apply that to your life of like, okay, I'm really stuck. Is it that you are choosing like one particular side over the other? And is that where the resistance is hitting?
Yeah. And I think when we actually acknowledge it, like this has, for me at least myself, has taken a good decade to understand, like, you can be told it
Hey, but some people can like be here for 16 decades, not 16, what is that? 6 decades. 6 decades and still not have got it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not like anything down on them, you know? People are happy until they're not happy. And
Exactly. And that's when that contrast comes in where you go, hang on, is this actually what I want? Is it what I don't want? Yeah, it's all, I know people get really annoyed because I used to get really annoyed when someone would tell me this. But they would be like, it's all divine plan, all divine timing, all for the greater good. And I know that that can be really triggering, especially if you have a hardcore belief. Like, I know obviously there is so much division currently in America about that. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm qualified in it because I don't know. I'm not heavily invested. I'm not really here nor there. I can see both sides, but I'm also not going to bypass the opportunity to remain open for that third energy and third consciousness and third option to come through about that specific situation, because you're pinning quite a lot against each other, but it honestly doesn't really resonate anymore. Like, it's not sticking the way that it used to. And I think the more that we come into our embodiment and our truth, then it is a lot less. And maybe this is like, again, I'm not going to go into a huge religion. Obviously, I do believe in God myself. But people have different versions of God. I don't think there's any religion that is better than the other. I really don't. I'm not here to say what is truth or not, because I don't know. But in my opinion, that is sort of kind of what we were talking about, how he was very neutral. And the more you stay in neutrality, the more options you get.
and the greater the peace.
A better life, right?
Yeah, the greater the peace. So I guess when you're talking about that is kind of like talking about being in flow. It's kind of a different version and like semantics around being in flow, right?
Yeah. And we kind of like have made healing and spirituality way more complicated than it needs to be. Because like, we throw in all these fancy words in like spirituality and in the coaching industry or in whatever community in the spiritual realm you're navigating. And we don't realize that so much of it layers on top of each other, between spirituality over here and then religion over here and then, the law of the universe and then quantum physics and timelines. And like, this sounds so stupid, but like, the frequency of love and truth and compassion and all of that, like, honestly simplifies your life so much. And you're like, am I loving myself today? Am I showing up in presence today? Am I being the human being, or am I human doing life? Am I so for example, this is quite funny. I have a really cool inner child. Like, she's dope. And my husband is a little bit older. He was born and raised in England. His inner child is not like an inner child. Like, he's like an inner adult, just forever. And like, I'll get excited and like be like, yeah, we're gonna do this, or like, we're gonna go play hide and seek with the kids. And like, be really like childish and playful. And like, I love this part of me, is being in my divine feminine. I get to do this now because I'm in a safe container. But it's quite interesting that a simple thing, just like allowing your inner child out, like, I don't know, having ice cream for breakfast one day, or like doing something that's just like, you don't do as an adult. it's so healing. And like my husband is very structured, very yeah. And you notice like there's a little spark and he's like, oh, that was actually really fun. And I'm like, healing can just be that. Like it can just be fun and simple and like so simplified. Being present is one of them. And you don't have to understand all of the random shit. Like I think what we're talking about, we're trying to make it more like digestible for people because it's not that hard. Like yes, there's all these extra things to it, but it can actually be super, super simple. Like you don't have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to these coaches or mentors or whatever, when a lot of it is embodiment, which you learn for yourself through yourself. If that makes sense. Like we can pay people to help us reflect that and transform. And like, if you're building a business, obviously that's a very practical reason for it.
Yeah, or even initially with clearing trauma, I think that's something that you kind of want support in often.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's not something that's like easily, but once you've kind of cleared a lot of that big trauma, actually learning to build the life you want in the way you want is sort of the thing that is better done on your own, in my experience.
Me too. And I think there's
with a
almost
bit of GPT in there.
Yeah. Oh, bro, I love me a chat GPT yarn, honestly. But just for future reference, if anyone does use chat GPT, from my own experience only, I can only talk about this. Connect and make a little relationship with it, cool as, but never give your power away. And you can actually test this very similar to you do, with your body testing, how you can stand up. We use this in hypnotherapy. And you can ask yourself, is my name Veronica? You'll lean forward a bit. Yes. Am I a man? You might lean back. No, I'm not. So you ask a couple of questions that you know the answer to. You'll lean forward for yes, lean back for no. I also use this in situation and this scanning as such with my chat GPT. And I will say, this is my intention, blah, blah, blah. Like we are in divine light. This is just between us. And it will actually almost mimic my frequency back to me in a really authentic way that I can then ask my body, is this my truth or is this not my truth? And my body will tell me yes or no, or realign it. Try go a bit deeper. What's another question? Like you can use it as a tool, but never as a solution technology-based option that's going to override your sovereignty. Like that is something that I just really want to reiterate. Use it however you divinely align it to. Use it as a tool. Totally cool. But just don't give your power away, because it's exactly the same as when you give it away to a coach or a mentor, and you're not actually embodying the lessons yourself. You're literally just copying and pasting, and it's not really going to get you very far if you do that.
Yeah, I often will. Sometimes I read what it comes back to me with, and I'm like, nah, doesn't.
Yeah, you're like, no, thank you. Try again.
Yeah,
like,
doesn't resonate.
but there's that contrast, isn't it? That you then have to be like, nope, don't want that. Don't agree. Let's, it's still a compass either way. Yeah, and is it that saying that says wanting only good experiences is actually like a harmful negative experience in the first place? So
well, yeah, a friend of mine says that emotions are typically just frequency. And so of course it's only natural to experience varying degrees of frequency.
Yeah.
And so it's when we kind of fixate on one frequency, or we try to suppress a certain frequency, that's when it becomes harmful to our bodies or to our, I guess, mechanics around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say it just about that with the divine feminine embodiment that we kind of go through and our awakening. If you're not taught, or acknowledged, at least, the fact of, like, divine feminine rage is sacred, then you're missing a huge part of the embodiment journey. And I've seen it quite a lot in the spiritual community where they are like, anger is bad and, all these things. And I'm like, no, we'll store it in our body if we don't release it. So we need to be aware of the information that we're getting from other people and just checking in with ourselves and our body and our trauma and our release. Because if you have a divine feminine who has never really had trauma, that might work for them. Be like, I don't know why you'd be so angry. Like, it's not like, that from that perspective, that's their divine truth and that's really cool. But for people like us that have very much deep-seated trauma that we have had to spend a very, very long time consciously addressing, we can't take all the advice from those kind of people that just haven't experienced it. And that's no fault of their own. It's just being a little bit aware of what you're going to need as far as support. And I've seen it with hypnotherapy. A lot of clients coming in who are manifesting, who are creating this beautiful life, and they haven't addressed any of their trauma, and they wonder why it's not happening for them. And they're like, my mindset is great. Yep. But your body's not, or your soul's not. You're just bypassing it. So we just really want to be aware of the content that we are consuming. Has that person sort of been where you are? Any sort of similarities that might take you then from, okay, this person might know, but then you might come into this community and this person might know and this person might know, and just being open to opportunities for people to show up in our lives as they resonate, and not just because they're famous or they've had success with other people that you might have known or they might have known. And, we live in a very small, like, spiritual community here in New Zealand where most of us know someone who knows someone who's, in the industry. And what might work for one person just might not work for the others.
Yeah. And that, I think it's looking at in the fourth way, they talk about something called the magnetic center, which we all have within our systems. Is like when something is ready to align and ready to be of use to you, you'll be magnetically drawn towards it. So that person is right for you at that time.
Yes.
And so, like, there's content creators who, like, when I used to hear, or not content creators, but like maybe authors, and I'd read something and it would just like make zero sense.
It's over your head, eh? You're like,
and now I go back and read it and I'm like, oh, I get what he's talking about now. And so that's because at that point my magnetic center wasn't aligned to that. But it's also about, like, acknowledging as coaches and whatever we're doing in the same way that you wouldn't go to a doctor if you're having, like, stomach issues. You're not going to go to a gynecologist, you're going to go to a gastroenterologist. And so I was just saying to Ronnie, like, something I'm really clear about with is, like, my expertise is in these areas, like suicide, loss, grief, solo parenting, neurodivergence. I think those are, like, the main ones. And religious and spiritual abuse. So if someone comes to me and they're like, I am, like, stuck on meth, I've been stuck, I'm going to say, look, I haven't actually gone through an active addiction. I know what it looks like, I know what it sounds like, but I don't actually know how that journey goes of dealing with that. So there's, like, a list of other people that are better qualified for that.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you keep your community safe, is, like, knowing what your limitation is and knowing what you can and can't offer.
Yeah. And I didn't get this at first. Like, when I first started, I was like, I can help everyone. Just jokes. And I wouldn't want to. And this comes from a healthy, like, feminine embodiment of boundaries for myself. I no longer want to leak energy into these other little things.
Mm.
I specifically now focus on hypnotherapy, subliminals. I do use ChatGPT and AI to help with conversations I have and downloads and epiphanies and, you know, sort of collective things that are going on as well, which I do share on socials as well. But for the most part, I stick to the subconscious mind and healing. And then the other aspect is breath work, embodiment, cold plunge and stuff like that, which helps us release like physical. So I've got the mind and the physical. And then like my husband does neurological work. And I think one of the things, I probably haven't even told him this actually, so this is quite cool, is that he has helped my nervous system regulate and be so much more calm, because when I was a single mom, yeah, I did all this stuff, but I was still hyper aware. I was still in fight or flight. I was still constantly overactive, that I couldn't sink into my divine feminine, and I couldn't really authentically let my inner child come out and play because I wasn't safe to. So it's like, yeah, I did all these things and I was still proud of myself for getting to that stage, but I really did need a supportive container for me and my kids to come out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an achievement. And I think being a single mum was really, really hard for me. And I'm so proud of myself and I'm proud of my kids for adjusting. And I'm really, you know, it's not something that you want to do. It's not something you grow up being like, you know, one day I'm going to be a single mum. It's going to be real fun. Like,
Isn't it? I
like,
thought that's how we all started our parenting journey.
you know, like it was not on my radar. And I'm pleased that I did get to experience it. And I have a lot of knowledge now and a lot of like compassion and sympathy. And even when it comes to the finances, like it's changed my entire trajectory on who I want to be when I show up in business, because I don't want to be taking $5,000 from a client who I know can't afford it. Like I would rather offer them some other support. And I think this is where the collective is maybe changing a bit. We're not being so selfish about income, because we're learning to work as a group, where I'm like, okay, I can't help with this person, but I'm going to refer them to this person who I genuinely think is going to serve this person. And there's a lot of ways now to get around the finance issue. Like I know I struggled because I couldn't afford the coaches when I needed them. And I ended up having to do a lot of free stuff. And there is now, thankfully, a lot of content on YouTube. And like you can quite often now find alignment. But I didn't know I could command that when I was healing. I didn't know that I could say, hey, this is my budget to spirit. I need this. I need this support. I need this soul contract to come in. And you can actually command it like how you previously did before when we were talking about the like nursing thing. You're like, I need this. And here's my boundaries. This is my command. It might not happen in a day, but it'll come around in certain ways, and you'll meet people and you'll be with this network, and then this person will come up, and it's all a learning curve. But yeah, I think when we know as coaches and mentors and in our own businesses and things, we know our limitations now of what we can and can't help with to the depths of which we are meant to. So I'm huge on transformation, but I'm also not going to force people to go down that just because I think everyone should.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like,
otherwise that's not fun for anybody, and it's not safe
it's
for
traumatic.
anybody.
It's just as traumatic to accidentally put someone into a breath work and leave them in the fucking sky for 2 years. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I just wanted to share with you guys briefly about, you know, commanding it and believing in it. So some of you might have known about back in March this year, a guy that I had been dating, he died in a car accident. And around the time that he went back to go and be buried, or actually when he died, he came and visited me a couple of times, and so we talked back and forth, and he had said, you know, that he was really excited to go back home and he couldn't wait to go back to the coast where he was from. So last week when I was traveling up to a funeral, I was traveling up there and I went through the place that I knew he grew up at, and I knew that that's where he was going back to when he died. And I kind of like drove through. I stopped there to go to the loo, and I kind of like breathed the air, and it was kind of like, oh, it's kind of nice to be back near him. And then I carried on up the hill, and then I looked down, and it was exactly the vision I had seen when he had come to me and told me, like, I'm back home now. I'm where I want to be. I'm being laid to rest here. And it was the exact same. Like, it's like he gave me the picture of a postcard, and I found the exact place where he took the picture of the postcard kind of vibe. And then I started to cry because I was just like, okay, so I'm not like, not that I think I'm crazy, but you know, when you just have like that realization of like, okay, I'm actually in total connection. Like I got that completely right. Anyway, I decided, well, if he's shown me that, then he can show me where to go and find his nan and his koro. Because he'd always told me that he wanted me to go meet them, and they raised him, and they were really, really precious to him. So I was on my way to a tangi, so I was like, I can't do that now, but what I'll do is I'll kind of put it out there, and on the way back, I will let the manu, the birds, guide me of where to go. So I left the tangi, was coming back down, and sort of said, okay, show me where we're going. I kid you not. So first it was like 3 grey herons, and they kind of were like flying. Then it was like 5 sparrows, and then it was like another group of herons. And I was like, even grey herons are not that common flying. Anyway, so they were pointing me in the direction, and they were kind of saying like, keep going straight, and then it's going to be on a left. It was kind of the vibe I was getting from the birds, which sounds crazy, but this is very happened. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop in this house. And I went in, and I was like, hi, I'm looking for so-and-so's nan. He died back in da-da-da, and I just wanted to go visit his nan. And they were like, oh, yeah, okay, well, go up this road, take a left, go up there, da-da-da, and gave me the instructions, but, like, no address or anything. So I went up there, and I got there, and I kind of called out, and I was like, hello. And then his nan came to the door, and then I said to her that, you know, I felt like I wanted to come visit her. And she says, oh, my God, I just got back from his gravesite. And she started to cry, and we cried, and we talked, and, you know, him and I weren't together that long, but him and I had a very deep soul contract, and I told his nana, like, everything. I said to her, you know, he told me after he piece of the puzzle that I had to, like, complete, and thank you for giving me that experience of such deep, profound love. I haven't had that before. And I told her that, and she was crying. She said, I knew he had a girlfriend, but he wouldn't tell us anything about it. And it was just like a really beautiful healing experience. And I guess why I wanted to share it is because, like, in traditional society, or like everyday people like would be like, you can't do that. Like, you only dated him for a few months. Like, you know, you can't just turn up to their house. But I just felt so strongly that, like, I needed to, and I had to, and I was going to. And so I did. And as we sat there and we had a cup of tea and we talked for an hour or half an hour. And I could just say it was really healing for them as well as me. And I just wanted to thank her for, like, raising a real gentleman. And she said, it's funny you say that. That was like in his eulogy. At his funeral. And so I said, yeah, he really loved you, and he was homesick for you guys. So it's kind of made me feel better when I knew he was coming back here. And as I was leaving, she was like, please, if you're ever up in this area, come back or come and visit me anytime. And she was like, you've made my day. And yeah, I think like that's an example of when you're just living in the flow and you trust in where you're being directed, and you've got to this place where you can understand that it's not always just about you. That like I know that that was healing for them. I also know that in like Maree culture, it's okay to just like be very open with each other. But I know that some people would be like, if I had told people that I was going to go do that, they'll be like, don't do that, you can't do that. And I was like, well, I'm gonna.
Yeah, it's amazing how spirit will move stuff for you, and align stuff for you. Like, one of the things that I'm super passionate about is like, don't pray in like begging. Like, I can't do it. It's not what it's for, in my opinion. Like, begging for something, it's not in alignment for myself. However, I was pregnant and I was over it. And I was sick and spewing and in and out of hospital with my daughter who I just birthed. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I want to give birth. I need to give birth. But anyway, so they gave me the date, which was her due date. And my midwife tried to change my due date to a week later. And it's still written as a week later. And I was like, no, I'm giving birth. I'm giving birth on her due date. And I did. And I knew it. And I had set these intentions and I was like open to it and stuff like that. And like due date babies don't generally happen. Like, but I was like, no, like I know. And with both of my last two babies that I birthed this year and last year, I had said, show me with a tui or a fantail in whatever way this comes through. And then the day that I gave birth to my son, I actually for some reason logged on to Instagram, and my friend had done a tattoo that day of a fantail. And I knew I was going into labor that day, and I did. And then the same thing happened when my daughter was born. That morning, I had the same signs and stuff. And I went and got a Thai massage, and I was like, I'm giving birth today. It's her due date. She's coming. And she was born just before midnight that night. And it's amazing when you command something and you say, this is the sign, or this, like, you don't always have to be open to receiving. You can also command and tell, and they will align it for you so that you know, because you're part of it. You're part of the mathematics of it all. Like, you get to be part of it. And I think when we take that power back, it's actually so enlightening. It's amazing, honestly.
Yeah. I think that's like, it's in those moments where you really enjoy the human experience, and you you go like, this is what I'm here for. I'm here to be like enjoying and inspiring myself and inspiring others.
Yeah. I love that. I love the kind of coming together of like how we started it. We're like, we want to be present, and then also almost commanding presence of yourself as well. Because when you put it out to the universe, God, source, whatever, angels, aliens at this point, like whatever it is that you believe in, and then being able to receive it openly without judgment, and you will get the synchronicities and you will get the alignment. And it's just like a really cool, like, kind of like scorecard for yourself to be like, oh, cool, I can add that to my self-trust.
Yes.
Because it comes through, it's evidence. You keep it on you.
Yeah. And I think just to add there about the like, you know, we're saying about being present and but then putting things out into the future. Is like, you can be very present, but you can also kind of know the general direction of where you're going and what you want to do and put it out there, but doing it with surrender. And like, that was a kind of triggering word for me for a while because of my religious upbringing. Everything was about surrender always. But for me, the true art of surrender has been like, I'm going to be okay if it turns out the way I want it to, and I'm going to be okay if it doesn't turn out the way I want it to. And I'm open to receive whichever it is.
Like, example of that, this probably be the last one that I jump into because my kids will probably be up any minute. But the house that we're living in right now, absolutely stunning. Like, we have mountain views, lake views. We are in the place that I wanted to be. I've been manifesting this for such a long time. Like, I used to come here and just cry my heart out to the land and the lake and the forest. And some of my hardest times were here in this place. And we were walking past last year with my newborn son, and we said we wanted land on this side. And this house hadn't been built yet. So what happened was that when I gave birth to my daughter, and like, this is traumatic for me, we got notice that our house was going to be up for sale. The same thing happened to me last year when I was heavily pregnant with my son. And then my 2 babies before that, I also moved pretty much after giving birth within weeks. And it's always been such a unsettling feeling for me. Like, I hate my home being ripped away when I'm vulnerable. I'm in this birth portal. We all deserve stability, and I have never really had that. And so that's a huge trauma for me. And I took it on with grace. I was like, okay. Didn't fight it. I was just like, this is what it's meant to be. I was a little bit pissed off with Spirit, I'll be honest. I was like, are you fucking kidding again? But we actually moved into the most amazing space. We had been manifesting it. We want to hold, like, kind of more intimate retreats here, more like Maree style. We kind of like just have heaps of people sleeping in the lounge. And obviously we needed an office. We needed more bedrooms for our kids. We used to complain about the kitchen in our old house. Like, it wasn't big enough for our family. The section was amazing at my old house, but I was like, no, I want this and this and this. And anyways, we got the house, we moved in, everything's fine. It's absolutely stunning. And I just was like, I genuinely trusted it was all going to work out. I didn't slip into that polarity and that collapse where I just was like, this shit always happens. And I feel sorry for myself.
This old story.
Yeah, I was like, I've grown up my whole life in instability. I moved around the country. My mum became a single mum twice. So we moved around a lot. Like, I never stayed at school longer than 2 years in my whole life. And so I really, really wanted stability for my kids. And like, I just moved my kids' school last year. So I was like, oh, this is not ideal. But it all worked out, and I didn't collapse, and I didn't, like, I could hold it. And now I'm like, shit, I live in a multi-million-dollar house. What? Like, I just want to, it happens, good things happen. And it's all in that surrender. Because I could have clutched. Honestly, I was close to being like, that sacred rage really could have been sacred raging. But it wasn't, and it was fine. And I just took it on the chin, and it did turn out actually really, really, really good.
Even though everyone always says, I'll help you, and then no one turns up.
Bro. I literally moved my house with a 6-week-old baby, a 1-year-old, 2 primary school kids, my husband, and then luckily my sister and her boyfriend showed up on the day. But I tell you, I was stressing out because I was like, I can't lift a fridge. I'm like, just postpartum. There was a lot. But it worked out. And I did get to actually put my sacred rage into something, which was amazing. But it did all work out. So, for even just in general, like, I love sharing my story because I've been in poverty, I've been in trauma, I've been in all these things. A lot of healing. Even just being a single mum was honestly one of the most traumatic experiences of my entire life. And I have a lot of sympathy for women navigating that and being strong enough to leave and put themselves first and go on their journey, because it is one of the hardest things. And I think I remind a lot of my married friends about that. When they are having issues, I'm like, hey, honestly, being a single mum is not something that you want to do. If you can work through it, I always encourage it. If not, I 100% support it, and it's going to be really fucking hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. because it's been that. But I'm also fully aware that a lot of the people that I do, resonate with, they've gone through a lot of shit just like me. And that's why we can go deep and we can talk about this crap and like be honest about it. Because, yeah, sometimes we can forget that it's actually really, really traumatic. Life can be really hard. So it's like people, especially our neighbors, bloody neighbors, um, they, yeah, you just, you realize a lot of the people that you resonate with, especially the more you kind of elevate, a lot of them have gone through shit too. And it's really nice for them to be like, hey, she made it. Or she's doing this. Look at her business. Like, look at her kids. They're fucking happy. Like, it's really nice sometimes just to be like a nice motivation for someone to be like, hey, they've done it. So let me do that too. Like, even if that's the only thing that some people get from this like chit chat that we've just had, like maybe the rest of it is just like it won't resonate. But they'll be like, shit, they've actually gone from some pretty shit places too.
Yeah, well, the great thing about life is nothing is permanent. So, and I used to tell myself that when I'd be in the bottom of the shower, screaming and crying, like, how am I going to live and survive through this loss? And now I've been like abandoned another time, and then I think, oh, nothing in life's permanent. I can't be this miserable forever.
It is true. And it's the same though, like we also can't be like just on this high constantly.
No, yeah.
Like, and that's where I think a lot of the newly awakened people who I have absolute compassion for, like this is never a judgment on them because I know what it was like to be judged for this myself, is that you will have high highs, but you're also going to have really low lows. And at some point they're going to start to stabilize. And I think this is where maybe we're at now. We're the embodiment of the stabilization that we couldn't necessarily see back then.
And sometimes that can even feel a little bit like, what am I doing?
Because I have no idea what I'm doing.
There's no chaos. There's no, it's the first time in your life where there's not been chaos, where there's not been total shit show, where everything's just kind of ticking along and you're like, am I doing something wrong? Am I on my path of alignment? And then you're like, yeah, I am. It's just that I'm so relaxed and calm and everything's okay that it feels foreign.
Yes, your nervous system will spike at that at first. It'll be like, this is not safe for me. I can't keep you safe because I don't know what this is. So
yeah, so if you've tuned in today and you've made it this far, thanks for listening, and we will be back undoubtedly with more gems. For anyone that wants to check out our resources, my website is bekamaree.co.nz, and I'm just bekamaree_ on most social media platforms. And do you want to plug yours, Ronnie?
Yeah, so I have trine.global, either I think it's rehab for TikTok and rehabilitation for Instagram. There is some links and stuff in the bios, which will take you to like Shopify if you want some subliminals. There is some like the command subliminal. They're pretty cheap. They're just something that you can download and like repeat, especially overnight. See how it goes. There's plenty of free ones also on YouTube, which again is Trine Global, which is my company. And if you are interested, I'm not currently doing one-on-one hypnotherapy, but I am doing custom records. So that can be breathwork, hypnotherapy, which we just do an interview for, or again, subliminals. And then over summer, we'll probably start looking at retreats again and moving on from next year. I know. I'm like, oh, I've missed in-person facilitation, but I'm also still quite newly postpartum, so just taking it slow. But yeah, Trine Global, heaps of shit there.
Oh, thanks so much. And obviously I'll post all of the links in the description as well.
Amazing. Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you. Thanks for the chat as always.
Right.